What's up everybody, it's me E-Man from E-Man's Movie Reviews, and today we're going to review Godzilla King of the Monsters, coming up next. Alright, let's jump right into a quick intro. Humanity's future and existence hangs in the balance as a number of large monsters surface to destroy the world. At the same time, Godzilla may end up being the world's only hope. Enough of that, let's get right into the good.
The good.
First and foremost, this film did not waste any time in terms of showcasing Godzilla and the other monsters. That in itself is a huge major win for this movie, seeing as though the previous Godzilla movie took practically an entire hour before they showed the creature at all. Moreover, this sequel picks up right after the aftermath of the previous Godzilla film. In terms of the narrative, it was nice to see the stories connect and address the gravity of the situation of basically having monsters destroy an entire city in that world. In addition to this, the level of destruction in this film was really on par with what we would expect from giant monsters fighting all the time. Now, speaking of monsters, in this movie, we get a whole bunch of them. It would appear that the movie studios heard the cries for more monsters loud and clear. There was a nice variety of monsters that casual Godzilla fans may not be acquainted with. However, the initial draw will come from the more classic monsters that have been advertised, like Mothra, Ghidorah, and more. Now, when it came to those actual classic monsters, they thankfully didn't remain just one-dimensional during the movie. Many of them were given a combination of various attack moves or even some power-ups to help make their battle more interesting. While I'm on the subject, the monster battles are exactly what you will expect, and this movie definitely does deliver in that regard. Many of the fights were constructed in a way that kind of felt like a professional wrestling match. There were many moments in the film where the drama and suspense would build up and you'll find yourself practically cheering for whatever monster is fighting at a given time. Okay, so monsters aside, most of the actors in this movie did a pretty fine job. I just want to take the opportunity to highlight the one actor that I felt was the most compelling, and that was Ken Watanabe. He had a certain presence in the movie that just made you want to pay more attention and listen closer to whatever he had to say, since he kind of was the voice of reason. It was also refreshing to see his role expand much more this time around too. Now, another element that I thought was pretty essential to making this movie work was the growth and expansion of the Monarch Company within the movie. The benefit of this organization within the film is that it becomes a practical medium for us, the audience, to obtain information in a reasonable way. The positive with Monarch's role is that the film is able to provide a lot of additional mythological lore about the monsters, which, by the way, just so happens to pay homage to the much older Japanese Godzilla films. Okay, enough of that, let's get right into the bad.
The bad.
Alright, so I'm going to start off light and then I'll work my way up, but we're going to start off with some of the mild humor that was used in the movie was kind of hit or miss. In a vacuum, the jokes or humorous moments were kind of chuckle-worthy at best, but when you think about the movie as a whole, the humor really didn't add up in most places. It unnecessarily broke the tension or the sense of urgency that the monsters created by basically tearing up the city. Going from the previous film to this one, the tonal shift gets much lighter, and I don't think that was a good direction to take. Again, it's a minor issue, but in hindsight, it just became rather noticeable how unnecessary those random bits of humor were for the entire movie. Another minor issue to address is the cinematography that was used during the monster fights. The reason why this was a minor issue is because it didn't always happen, but it did happen on some occasions during some of the monster battles. Basically what would happen is that there would be certain camera shots or angles that, let's just say, were too zoomed in, all while the scenery would be a little bit too dark to make out some of the actual action. It was a bit disappointing because there were opportunities to work around this. For example, the movie could have included more building fires or something of that nature to kind of help light up the scene a little bit better, and audiences would be able to make out what's going on. Now, for the last minor issue, this movie was kind of predictable. Unfortunately, this movie doesn't take very many risks with its characters or the monsters, so that basically leaves you to easily guess the outcome of most situations. you'll probably notice really quickly that the movie's gonna telegraph a lot of things that happen during a really intense moment, and after the fourth or fifth time that they do this buildup of anticipation, it's just gonna start to wear thin. Okay, now that we got those minor issues out the way, I gotta talk about the major ones. Now, hey, it was a great thing that they added more monsters to this movie, but many of them were wasted. While the initial setup and promise of the movie feels like there's gonna be like a major free-for-all between all the monsters, we just have a bunch of them just being background noise. To top that all off, even one of the primary classic monsters in the movie was a complete and utter letdown. This particular monster gets hyped up so much and even has some pretty interesting moments in the movie. However, when it's all said and done, it felt like their entire existence was for nothing. Now, as for the biggest problem with this movie, that prize goes to all the human characters, except for Ken Watanabe, and their personal dramas. While the movie studio clearly heard the criticism of not having enough monsters, they apparently missed the memo that the human drama is not needed at all. The motivations for some of the main characters are pretty dumb, and they almost feel like they came straight from a comic book villain story. For a monster movie, taking time away to focus on the human character's personal drama was a huge distraction. As a matter of fact, King of Monsters is 2 hours and 11 minutes long, and it most definitely would have been better served to remove the family drama elements to save at least 20 minutes of time. To make matters even worse, many of these irrelevant issues would come up right in the middle of a climactic monster fight. All of that rising action and tension gets broken every time we take time away from the monster fight to focus on a character's personal issues. I don't know how anyone would have thought that that would be a good idea at all, but one of the best fights in the movie has to take a break just to show us how some family is doing in the middle of all that. I mean, seriously, I don't care about your family drama when monsters are destroying the world. Okay, you know what? Go to the reason.
The reason.
Godzilla King of Monsters is a really entertaining movie that's saddled with disappointing direction. It's a monster movie that feels like a restaurant that just can't get your order right. It's almost like if you go to a fast food restaurant and ask them for a hamburger with extra ketchup and hold the pickles. When you finally get your burger, they give you ketchup packets on the side, but you still find 2 straggly pickles hiding under the bun. Right now, Godzilla King of Monsters is falling into a similar trap that the Michael Bay Transformer movies would succumb to. It'll give you a lot of good stuff that you wanted, but it won't take the time to filter out the unnecessary things either. So let me address the human issue that I'm talking about in this movie so that there's no confusion within this criticism that I had about the movie. There simply needs to be a better balance when it comes to the monsters and the human drama in these movies. I say that because there's a built-up expectation for audiences when they come to see these monster movies. The monsters should receive the most screen time because they should be the lead characters. Humans should be complementary or just secondary characters that revolve around the monsters. All the human drama that happens, if it has nothing to do with the monsters, it should not be trying to fight and compete for our attention. We came to see the monsters, not to see what's going on in Sarah and Billy's relationship. The moments in the movie that show the humans trying to deal with the monster problems are great. The moments when they're trying to deal with their family, marriage, or whatever else is not so great. The humans in these movies can serve the purpose of informing us about the monsters, be affected by the aftermath of the monsters, and even have some relationships with the monsters. Regardless, the moment the film draws attention away from the monsters and onto human personal issues, I believe that the film is betraying its primary purpose, which is to be a movie about monsters. So when it comes to the rating for Godzilla King of Monsters, I've got to give it a 6 out of 10. Yes, this movie did have more monsters in it. Yes, it had really good fight scenes with the monsters. Yes, it also had some very entertaining moments. It's ultimately an ideal popcorn flick that is still kind of worth seeing in theaters, if you're willing to ignore the parts of the movie that have absolutely nothing to do with the monsters. The monsters and the fights are the only thing, in my opinion, that make this movie worth watching at all. The story is kind of dumb and it is nonsensical, but they give you so much with the monsters to distract you that you'll probably be way more forgiving about it. So as a fan of monster movies myself, Despite all the negative issues with this movie, I'd still say yes, go check it out. And be sure to stay all the way till the end because there is one post-credit scene. So will you be checking out Godzilla King of the Monsters in theaters? When you do go see it, come on back to this video and let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. Thank you so much for joining me today. I always greatly appreciate it. If you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you all later.